Okay, Assalamualaikum and good morning, everyone. Welcome to today's seminar organized by CADe. Okay, so it's already 10 a.m. We shall start now. Okay, more people are coming in actually. Okay, so today is all about uncovering how to overcome the major challenges in online teaching. Okay, which is to sustain student engagement and encourage their active participation while learning online, which this issue has been faced by all of us, especially since 2 years ago, I would say, okay, since we start the online learning in the beginning of the MCO. Okay, so to learn about this topic, we have Dr. Nur Aira Abdul Rahim to share her knowledge and her experience, which Dr. Aira is from the Faculty of Educational Studies, completed her doctoral degree from North Carolina State University, USA in 2017. It is her area of specialization in adult education and adult learning. Her research area is mostly focusing on technology in adult learning in various contexts and in the area of scholarship in teaching and learning. So Dr. Aira is actually really experienced in the area, especially with regard to this topic. So this topic will take about 2 hours. Okay, but before we get started, which Dr. Aira will share her experience and also to show us some demonstration, I'm going to go through some housekeeping to ensure you can interact with myself and the speakers throughout the session. Okay, so firstly, I would like to remind you to please mute your microphone during the presentation by the speaker, because at the beginning we'll start with the presentation and demonstration, and then we'll have the Q&A session later. Okay, however, if you have any problem, if you have any questions that you really want to ask during the session, you can just feel free to raise hand by using the raise hand icon, using the function in the Zoom. Okay, or you may also ask your questions through the chat box in the case that you have any problem with the internet connection or with your microphone. Okay, so yeah, without further ado, I would now like to welcome our speakers for today, Dr. Nur Aira. Dr. Nur Aira.
Hello.
Hi.
Yeah, ready.
How are you, Dr. Nur Aira? Are you at home or are you in the office?
At home. Yes.
At home. Okay. So yeah, because Dr. Nur Aira has kids actually under 12. So okay. So Dr. Nur Aira, I think that without further delay, I shall pass the floor to you to start the sharing session. Okay, Dr.
Okay. Thank you so much, Dr. Intan. Good morning, everyone. Assalamualaikum to all my fellow colleagues, okay, my senior colleagues, my junior colleagues. Thank you for coming in today to participate in my sharing session. Please allow me to set up my screen sharing, okay, for today's sessions. All right, so of course, first of all, I would like to thank CADe for the opportunity, okay, for inviting me, because this topic is actually very close to my heart, because I've been doing this for several semesters and I'm actually really excited to be sharing about this topic to all of you. Okay, so I would consider today's session, okay, with me. All right, thank you again, Dr. Intan, for introducing me. Okay, all right, so I would consider today's topic more like a sharing session instead of a training session per se. Okay, because what I did was actually going to be sharing how I actually did using one application. It's called Keep the Scoreboard, which is referring to the online participation scoreboard, to actually engage my students while teaching online. Okay, so this is essentially the summary of the talk for today. All right, so before everything else, I just would like to share with all of you about the reason or the trigger why I actually started using this online participation scoreboard. Okay, so I think like everybody, if you are a lecturer who have been teaching online for the past 18 months, I'm pretty sure you have actually faced this situation before. I really like this meme that I saw that I came across in the internet, because how often we actually encounter or experience this situation before when we are trying to teach online, spend a considerable amount of time to actually prepare for classes and try like really cracking our brain to try and get the students to be participative and listening to our lecture and engage, right? Okay, but most of the time, okay, when we come into the classes, you know, students were very silent, okay, and also most of them would actually start, you know, switching off their camera, and then we end up feeling like this guy over here, feeling like we're talking to the wall, because there seems to be an awkward silence, no response, and even if I start asking questions, I end up answering back the question. Okay, all right. So the scenario started, you know, of course, this was observed last year, and I think most of us can relate to this situation. Okay, so common scenarios when teaching online. I think I still remember the first semester that we have to adjust to this new normal was last year. Okay, but during that time, it was more focused on adjusting to the new norm, okay, because at least during the first semester when we all started to have to force to teach online, at least we already know the student for at least 4 to 5 weeks, okay, prior to us switching to the fully online mode due to the pandemic. Okay, so I think during those time, we were really figuring out how to use Zoom, how to open camera, how to mute, okay, how to manage all these new norms. So it was mostly focusing on that. But then, of course, we were hoping things to go back to the normal after 3 months, but of course that did not happen. All right, and then we were anticipating during that time to actually come back to students to come back on campus and to start, you know, and actually switching gear back to teaching the way we are used to. But as you all know, that did not happen last year. Okay, and then what happened was that we have to continue to teach online, and then those presented a new scenario for me, okay, because I realized that starting the class to teach online that semester presented a new scenario, because now I don't know the students. Okay, that means I don't know the students prior to the online class, and I have to get to know them while teaching online. Okay, compared to the first semester, at least I get to know the students face to face for the first 5 semester, and then we continue to pick up the pace online. But the second semester, when it started, it presented a new situation. Okay, so online class continued, okay, on unknown name and faces. So a lot of things, a lot of the time, okay, when trying to teach online, things got really awkward, especially the silence, yeah, the fact that the students, part of it, maybe they don't know how to engage, all right, or maybe they feel very insecure, okay, given the online scenario, because as you know, when we are on mute, when we are on unmute situation, our voice are actually clearly can be heard throughout the entire class, and then your face are going to be pinpoint to the camera. So a lot of this presented the students with some insecurity, and they feel like they prefer to remain, okay, mostly invisible in an online classes. Okay, but I don't want to teach the class in such a way, okay, and I have to devise, and again we continue into the third semester, online fatigue, and also again that silent awkward continues, and some part of it, students were really feeling very, very tired with the online situation. A lot of things have to be forced to be engaged online. So I was again trying to look for a new ways, okay, to engage the student in my class. Okay, because the way I teach my class is that I really like my class to be very much interactive, and I do and the way my class is structured, okay, because I know sometimes classes or class time might differ, okay, according to different faculties. But the way my class is structured, it's always lecture for straight 3 hours. It does not, they don't break the schedule into, for example, 2 different lecture in 1 week, like maybe one short lecture of 1 hour. Okay, so it's always straight 3 hours. And even if I have, so there's one semester where I have Amali, and the Amali actually continues, okay, right after the lecture. So 2 hours of lecture and then 3 hours of Amali. So 5 hours of trying to teach online. Okay, so it really presented me a challenge and really pushed me to try and find a way to really engage my students. Okay, so that I don't have to end up talking on my own for 5 hours. Okay, so I come up with this strategy and I'm really excited to share this with you. And I would like to credit, okay, the discovery of these applications, okay, to my colleague, Dr. Masnida. Actually, she was sharing, okay, her experience, and I decided to pick it up and apply it to my class, and I find it very, very effective. Okay, all right. So what I did, okay, so I'm going to guide everybody through the process, and then later on we can have a Q&A session and also some quick demonstration. Okay, so what I did is that I decided to come out, okay, with a mechanism, okay, to award weekly points for my students for their contribution and participation. Okay, because I think we do this all the time. We always, so for example, in our assessment or evaluation of the students, sometimes we do allocate, for example, 5% or 10%, okay, of the total score marks to the students, okay, in regards to their contribution. But in the end, when I evaluate back, or when I reflect back, okay, on my teaching practices at the end of the semester, how do I actually determine, okay, students who are who contributed to the class? How do I actually give them the marks between 5 to 10, ranging on the marks that I allocated, okay, for contribution and participation? So it is part of the assessment, okay, because I do tie in the marks to the students' overall grade, okay. But in the end, at the end of the semester, how do you determine that? Especially if you are dealing with a medium-sized class or maybe even a large class, okay, for about maybe 20 to 30 students, or 20 to up to 40 students. And usually a lot of the students felt like the students who are outstanding or outspoken, or who are more extrovert, will end up getting a lot of the contribution and participation point. And the students who are more introvert and a bit more shy, okay, they will end up, you know, not being noticed or not being present in the class at all. Okay, so what I did is that I decided to award the weekly points for contribution and participation among my students. And it is actually using a classical behavioral theory, because it works really well with the students, okay, because they will be very much willing to do things if they know it is actually tied to their marks. And not only that, they are able to see the marks, okay, being contributed or being reflected, okay, in their contribution. So I use a classic behavioral theory. And then I just would like to also explain the class context where I actually applied this strategy, because I think it is important, okay, for this sharing session, okay, for all my dear participants to know whether this is applicable to your classes, or whether or not, you know, you can apply this with some changes, okay. So I actually teach both undergraduate and postgraduate every semester. So the class that I taught, the class that I used this strategy was for both undergraduate and postgraduate situations, postgraduate students. And naturally, the way I teach, or at least the content and the way I teach or approach, okay, my teaching for undergraduate and postgraduates are different, because postgraduate students, their class are of course more discussion based. All right, so I would expect the students to have a lot of scholarly contributions, okay, in my class for postgraduate student. Whereas for undergraduate, it's really about training them, okay, to be able to speak up and contributing and not being too afraid, developing those soft skills in addition to the content, in addition to the class content, of course. All right, and then I have to say that this works really well for both my classes, because they are medium-sized classes of 30 to 40 students. Okay, so I don't know, so I do not have any experience conducting this for a larger classes, because there is an administration commitment that is tied to this strategy. Okay, so if you're talking about, I don't know, maybe above 50 students, okay, in a particular class, this might present a challenge, okay, to actually apply this strategy. Okay, because there is a lot of students to track in one class. Okay, for my classes, it's only medium-sized classes. And I would like to share how does the online participation scoreboard looks like. I'm sorry, I have to stop resharing. Okay, all right. So, again, the common name that I use, and even the term that I use in my class, is called the online participation scoreboard to my students. Okay, so I always inform them on a weekly basis that I will be tracking their participation every week. Okay, and then they can actually check it on the online participation scoreboard. But the application itself is called Keep the Score. Okay, so if you are interested to explore more about these applications, you can actually type keep the score and you should be able to came across, okay, these applications online. All right, so these are the this will be an example to give you guys an overview first, and later on we will have a short demonstration, okay, on how do you actually set up this online participation scoreboard. So these are the name of all the students in my class. So it's a medium-sized classes. This one I think is about 33 students in this class, and this is a postgraduate class. And so every week, actually, whenever I teach, I will encourage the students and I will actually plan for an activity, okay, for the students to be able to contribute and engage in the class discussions, right? So I will actually award points for any kind of contribution, or even I will conduct some activity, or I will offer some bonus point and things like that. And I will actually input the marks every week. So as you can see here, there are some notes here, week 1, and then week 4, week 5. So every week, okay, students who contributed actually will earn a point. Okay, there are things that I will also award the students points. So for example, this is undergraduate scoreboard, this is postgraduate scoreboard, but for undergraduate scoreboard, especially on classes where I have Amali, where I have weekly tasks for the students to complete, okay, even when completing their weekly tasks, okay, once they submitted all their weekly tasks, I will actually award 1 point for everyone for just a submission completion point. Because for me, okay, the students have to see that their submissions, okay, the work that they do, especially for undergraduates, the work that they do are reflecting, and we are actually checking their works. And I will actually award just a submission point just to let them know I checked their work and I acknowledge that they have done the work and they will receive the point at the end of the week. Okay, so these are how I structured the online participation scoreboard. So let me go back to my slides and explain a little bit more how I structure the points, okay, how marks are awarded on a weekly basis. Okay, so it is a bit different from undergraduate and postgraduate students, okay, but typically this is how I will structure it, and I will actually send this information out to my students. Okay, so of course, when we talk about contributions, okay, maybe at the first glance, when I announce about this online participation scoreboards to my students, they probably would wonder any kind of response would count as contribution. Okay, therefore I have to make sure that I really were very explicit and clear about how I evaluate their online participation contribution. Okay, so I made sure that, you know, there's questions, it has to contribute in terms of their contribution, okay, either audio contribution or chat contribution, it has to be related to the topic, lecture or activity discussion, including good question asked about the lecture's topic. So this is for my graduate class, yeah, because I do expect the students in a graduate class level to really engage with the topic taught. All right, but also I excluded, okay, points that are not eligible, contribution that is not eligible for points are also included in my description, not including question about assignments, assessment, housekeeping questions, for example, like next week, do we have class, or what time is our class start, things like that. Simple responses, general remark like thank you, yes, and things like that are not awarded points. Okay, and I also inform the students, and because I do a lot of breakout sessions in Zoom, okay, with my especially with my graduate students, I can only assess their contribution during larger group discussion, not during breakout room, as I assume everyone will play their role. So I already informed the students, and I also let them know that the scoreboard does not award for attendance. Okay, you need to contribute. So by just attending the class online and even opening their camera does not count as part of how I awarded the marks. Okay, but rather they really have to contribute. And I also elaborate a little bit more on how the points are awarded. Okay, there are several reasons. Reasons why I decided to do this. Okay, for example, I really encourage the students to contribute using audio contribution. Or voice contribution, opening up their mic and be brave to actually talk in the classes, okay, so that it become a more lively class and having a lot of discussion based, especially for graduate level class. So one substantial voice or audio or comment. Okay, typically I will decide either it carries 1 or 2 points depending on your answer, depth of contribution, or if they are presenting a certain points. And then there is this session where I set up every week. It's called a tri-pairing session. This is more of a class activity that I conducted. Okay, so usually this one I will award 2 full points because the students are presenting and they are actually taking turns every week. So again, even if it's compulsory for the students to present, okay, I structured it every week for the full 13 week. At least the students know every time they are presenting, participating, okay, doing something in their class, engaging in the class, I will award them with points, okay, using the online participation scoreboard. And of course, we know that a lot of our students, yeah, especially probably when they first started, they are more comfortable with chat contribution or typing something in the chat, okay, rather than opening up their microphone. Okay, so I also recognize that, but I will kept it at only 1 point. So maximum 1 point only for chat. So even if they contribute a lot during chat and everything was just chat basis, okay, they are only award 1 point only for chat contribution. And then other voluntary roles, okay, I will explain later about the co-host role and other extra points as decided by me. And also I will usually give bonus point, and bonus points are really very much emerging depending on the class discussion. You know, there are some students who are actually sharing very, very important insight in my class, especially for graduate students. And if I really feel very happy, okay, with the discussion that was raised during that week by that particular students, I will actually award them the bonus points. And it really works, especially for the outstanding students. Okay, those who are more shy, typically they will try to engage. Okay, they will force themselves to engage, usually in a more subtle way, but it's still, you can see sort of, you know, most of them try much more compared to if they are not awarded the points. And the important part about this is that I want to make sure that this practice, this online engagement using participation scoreboard, is more of a collaborative. It's more of a community-based discussion in the class, okay, rather than it being competitive. So that's why, okay, I decided to max the point that can be earned by the students every week. Okay, so as you know, in the class, typically you will have like 1 or 2 or even probably 3 very, very outstanding students. And then the rest will be, you know, somewhere at the middle, you know, bell curve. Okay, so for those outstanding students, okay, of course, typically they will earn the point every week, but I kept the point to be maximum 2 points for contribution. Okay, except for bonus point, it will be awarded over and above. Okay, so for me, so if let's say, for example, one outstanding student contribute in their voice and also in chat, okay, you will still receive maximum 2 points, okay, because I believe in opening up the opportunity for all other students to be able to score their points on a weekly basis. All right, so multiple voice contribution will also count as 2 points. So if you answer my question at the early of the class, you contribute during the discussion, okay, at the end of the session, you still ask questions, okay, yes, I recognize it, but I still will count it as maximum 2 points. Multiple chat contribution will only receive maximum 1 point. And only tri-pairing and bonus point awarded by me can be given over and weekly maximum point. Okay, right. So the good thing about this scoreboard, what I really like about it is that it allows the student to track their participation during online classes and monitor their own contribution during classes throughout the semester. Okay, because the scoreboard is actually open to public, meaning I gave the link to the students. Okay, I give the links to everyone and they are able to monitor their participations. So they are able to look at they are able to check their marks on a weekly basis. If they really contribute, they would like to see their marks reflected. Okay, they would like to see their marks reflected. And usually, okay, at the end, like most of them, you know, at the earlier semester, of course, the response are pretty slow. But based on my experience conducting this for over 3 semesters, okay, I realized that the students are slowly changing and gaining their confidence by end of the semester. So at first it started really slow, maybe 1 or 2 students, okay, sometimes, you know, you have to give them a little bit of a nudge or a push, okay, call their name and then they will respond, okay, and then you award them the points. But usually after several times of doing it, a lot of the students, you know, become more willing, okay, to contribute and even to voluntarily, okay, contribute to or engage in the class discussion. So what it is that it encourages the students to stay focused and to continuously engage during online classes because they wanted the point. And in order to be able to participate, okay, they have to focus and listen to the lecture. So it seems to work really well to actually, at least for the majority of the students, to get them to engage and focus in the class content. And also, what I really like about it as an instructor, at the end of the semester, okay, when I would like to evaluate, okay, the students' marks, or how much marks should I give the students in terms of their contribution, okay, because this is part of their grade, I will actually take a look at the online participation scoreboard as an indicator. So what I'm saying, why as an indicator, why as indicator instead of taking it as an absolute mark. So for example, okay, so I would take a look at the scoreboard at the end of the semester when I want to award the contribution marks. I wouldn't take, like for example, this is the total mark that the student accumulated, okay, throughout the 14 weeks. Okay, I wouldn't take 19 and then just convert it. But I believe in just looking at it as an indicator, or actually breaking it up into several groups, okay, to decide, okay, which students would be eligible to earn higher contribution points or higher participation points for their class grade. And then, of course, throughout, even halfway to the semester, okay, when I look at the participation board, because I was tracking them, okay, I was able to identify students who are somewhat not participative. Okay, all right. So you can see from the score here, I was able to identify, and at least this gives me an indicator that, you know, the students might be not engaging or even not present in the class, because usually they should be able to earn points at least from the chat contribution. Okay, but just based on the scoreboard indicator, when I track, again, I can know, like, there are some students who probably just online and then, you know, leave the desktop and then did not listen to the lecture at all. Okay, so there are some students who are able to track, and I will approach them and try to do that, you know, some damage control or whatever. So it really helps me. So if, for example, for UG class, this would really help me identify students who are, quote unquote, you know, having problems. Okay, maybe it's their internet access, but at least from this tracking, I was able to identify and approach the student and asking whether, you know, they are having trouble with internet connections, you know, things like that. Okay, just based on their online participation scoreboards. And if I realized the problem was the student was really feeling insecure, okay, about this whole thing, okay, I will try to call the student's name, okay, and asking questions that are not too intimidating. Maybe it's just some feedbacks, okay, and things like that, so that they know that they are being acknowledged and recognized in my classes. And then after that, I will award the points, okay. So these are all the points, and I don't typically translate this, for example, 7, and I will put it in their grade 7/10, for example. But I will just use this as an indicator. I evaluate from multiple perspectives, actually, but this is one of the way that I will actually use to evaluate and track my students' participation and engagement in my class. And of course, the outstanding students will be here. And for undergraduates, usually sometimes I do award them reward, okay, at the end of the semester for undergraduate students. Okay, right. So now let me go back to my slides. Okay, and so I would like to share with all of you on the impacts of doing this or engaging this over 3 semesters. This is my 4th semester, actually, so these are still undergoing, okay, because we are still teaching online. And even if we go back to face-to-face, I might consider some aspect, I might consider implementing this to a certain extent, okay, depending, because if it also works, for example, competition-based classes, debate, and things like that, because the Keep the Score application can be structured in multiple ways, which I will demonstrate to all of you later. Okay, so for impacts, okay, what I realized, and then this was typically very much visible among the undergraduate students. More students volunteered to contribute, some even text before class and asked to be called during classes. Okay, so what I realized is that, of course, during the first few weeks when I start introducing the online participation scoreboards to the students, okay, the students don't know how it works yet and wasn't sure if I'm going to keep up with the scores and everything. But once it starts to become clear to them that I'm really tracking their marks, okay, more and more of the students are more willing to participate and engage in the classes through various ways. Okay, so for example, I receive a lot of these texts before classes. You know, maybe some of the students, they don't want to appear, so just to give you guys a context, these are actually first year students that I taught. Okay, first year students, second semester, and these are in a class that have Amali, where I teach computer applications. Okay, so the students, so some of them maybe don't want to appear to be too vocal, like volunteering in the class. So they will text me outside of the class and let me know that they want to volunteer. So during the class, I will call their name, okay, to contribute, and they are all ready and willing. Okay, so they will text me outside of the class. And what I also realized, other than increased participation and engagement, I realized that the students are also getting more confident, okay, having that online confidence to share and ask questions, and it has become a norm to the class to be actually asking questions and engaging and talking to the class rather than just letting me, okay, to engage in the lecture and to be doing all the talking and things like that. So students are more accustomed to screen sharing, volunteering, contributing to the discussion, asking questions, and it is especially pertinent to my graduate classes, because what they realize after at the end of this, not really end of the semester, okay, after the second part of the semester, is that they are getting accustomed to the class culture of having discussion-based class rather than expecting a lecture-based class in my graduate class. All right. So for example, the students were saying that she would like to volunteer, although she is nervous, okay, because I teach computer application and Excel is part of it among human resource development students. Okay, so she was nervous, but she's willing to try, because again, the context is that these are first year students. Okay, so again, there is increased sense of confidence, of wanting to try, getting more accustomed to screen sharing and things like that. And also remember about the point caps. Okay, so I usually will cap 2 points maximum for all students except for bonus point. Okay, so I would like to encourage a more collegial spirit among the students rather than, this activity to become very competitive and only favor a certain students. Because as we know, if let's say I structured this to be a full competition, okay, in the end, students who are outstanding is going to continue to contribute, and students who feel like they are not catching up will continue to shy away. I don't want to do that. I don't want to make that happen. And so I want to make sure that the points, or at least the opportunity, are well distributed. So just by this, so that these students, Darvina is one of the students who are pretty much active in the class. Okay, but she also know that, she also willing, okay, to share her spot, okay, and getting more volunteers to award the point, because she knows that the maximum point that she can earn is 2, okay, and otherwise she wants to give the opportunity to other classmates. So it developed this sense of collegial among colleagues, encouraging them to present if they have not received their points for that week. Okay, for those who have received their points, they usually would take back and be more relaxed and encourage their classmates. Okay, so it works really well for the students. And of course, I was really curious with the overall impacts of this project. So I collected some feedback from the students as well. Okay, I structured some of the surveys. So I haven't actually got the time to really analyze this and turn it into, some work in progress paper. But these are some of the, so let me just focus, probably this one I will work on it later, but what I want to show all of you is that how or what the students are, the feedbacks that are coming from the students, okay, from as a result of engaging this. So I collect from both my undergraduate and graduate, so you can see probably a combination of feedback. Okay, so for example, help me to contribute more in class. Some said yes, it can be quite a pressure, okay, but in a good way, such as if I'm not clear about something, I will automatically know how to do it later. Okay, it leads me to be more active into online classes, makes me more motivated to participate in classes to collect points. Okay, all right, of course, it's not always a walk in the park for everything that you do in classes. Okay, there are some students who might not favor what you are doing. So for example, there are some students who are feeling not so confident, especially when they see other friends got highest marks. So these are some of the the issues or the caveats, which I will share in the next slides. Okay, but overall, okay, the students are really giving some very encouraging feedbacks on the use of this online participation scoreboard. Memberi saya rasa dihargai dan berbaloi untuk terus kekal konsisten di dalam kelas. So you can see here, when I see my score is low, I will try to be more active in the upcoming class. Some kind like motivation for me to get high score like Nuha. So again, this is the classic behaviorist theory. Okay, you contribute something, you get a point. You contribute something, you get a point. Okay, so these are, and then we don't have to go through all this in details. Okay, so for example, please, I do ask the students for some other thoughts, and here pembahagian markah dilakukan dengan sangat adil dan jelas. Again, the students are really clear on the marks that they are earning in my class for their participation. So it encourages them to contribute, okay, because they know at the end of the day, when they check this participation scoreboard, they will be able to track their marks. And these marks over here are usually, these are the notes that is related to the marks. And usually the word ongoing here, I have not updated this, this has been last semester, but I told the students sometimes I do need time, okay, to update this. When it says here ongoing, it means that the process is also, the updating process is still ongoing as well. So the students know when they look at this ongoing and they haven't seen their marks reflected, okay, they should know that I am in the process of updating the marks. Okay, all right, so it's really good to see our participation points. Okay, so a lot of these are giving really positive feedbacks. Okay, so maybe there are some students who feel probably not feeling fully positive of this teaching strategy, but I think that's fairly common in any teaching situation when you are trying to do some things. Okay, but at least for the most part, as you can see from the responses that I have collected, okay, most of the students are the impacts can be seen among the students. It motivates me to be brave in demonstration and things like that. This is most likely coming from the first year students when I was teaching them online. Was really encouraging them not to be afraid, because for undergraduate students, I really focus on their soft skills other than the content, because I told them this is going to be a new normal. Okay, so you sort of have to just treat the class as a learning situation, okay, where whenever you are going to say something, it's not going to be frowned upon. There's not much accountability, rather than just sharing and encouraging them to be brave and things like that. Okay, so let me go back to my slides. Sorry if I go a little bit fast. Okay, let me slow down a little bit. Okay, so here are some caveats, and I think maybe among our esteemed participants, you might have noticed and probably have these questions at the back of your minds. Okay, all right, so as you can see, because these are, I committed to updating the marks on a weekly basis, you can see that there will be an extra administrative work for the lecturer on setting up the scoreboard during the early part of the semester, and also to keep up with the scores on weekly basis. Of course, I realized this intensely on the first time I was applying this. I realized it is really a lot of work, and I actually have come up with a counter to help me alleviate this, and I will share with you on the next slides. But really it can, so that's why I would recommend this strategy for a medium-sized class. For a large class, this might be something to think about, okay, because it might be really hard to track participation for a larger class of more than 50 or above students, I think. Okay, so my experience, okay, things that I've shared, things that I did in my class is mostly for, I'm managing 30 to 40 students per class on a weekly basis. Okay, so there are also some students, based on the feedback that I collected, feel like the board should be anonymous and private rather than publicly open, like you know, the example that I showed you just now. Because actually by giving them, the students, the link, everybody are actually able to view the board and know their friends' marks, because I actually use their name, all right, taken directly from SMP or iGEMS, and just enter it into the scoreboard. Okay, and I haven't actually figured out a way around this. Okay, I was thinking about maybe assigning anonymous, but what I realized again, this is just a minority of the student who felt like they shouldn't be open, because some actually are motivated looking at their friends' mark. Okay, so you can't win everything in a one situation. So maybe I would just for time being stay and maintain the way it is, meaning making the link as public to the class so that everybody can view their scores and also their classmates' scores. And some students, because for my postgraduate students, there are a lot of adult students, meaning to say they are, and because we are in pandemic, they are studying at home while also having to manage their family, all right, children, okay, PDPR, on all those kind of situation at their background. Okay, so I do receive some feedbacks, okay, especially from the adult students from my graduate class. They express difficulty to commit and participate due to their situation at home, and the fact that I was tracking their points weekly on the scoreboard makes them feel really pressured. Okay, so these are for some of the students. Okay, and then this is a caveat, but I'll share with you guys the countermeasure after this. Okay, just bear with me. So actually, when I started using the application last year, okay, it was free. Okay, but just this year I realized that it is no longer free starting this year. Small fee apply, but you only have to pay one time of USD 399, and you can recycle the bot again and again. But I think it is justified because when I first started using it, there isn't a lot of functions and the setting up and things like that. It was very plain looking. Okay, but since they have started charging, there is a lot of options to set up the bot, okay, to customize it. You know, those are some things that maybe are important to some instructor. But of course, because I have used this application, Keep the Score, from last year, I was able to keep my free account as long as I did not as long as I did not delete the scoreboard. Okay, all right. So here are some counters, okay, to share with all of you how I manage all the caveats. Okay, so one thing that I did, of course, I learned it during the first semester, and I realized it is a lot of work to track the marks, especially because I wasn't actually tracking it manually. When I was engaging in the class, I didn't write down the student's name. So I end up having to listen to my own recording. Okay, so that was a really lesson learned. Okay, so I decided to do things differently. So one of the things that I try to do during classes is that I write down the student's name. But of course, that usually is not very comprehensive. And you know, sometimes you do get distracted, okay, with discussion, or you might miss some of the students' name. Therefore, every week I make sure that I appoint a class co-host to assist me in tracking the overall class participation. So my class co-host usually is, so again, this is part of class management, all right, part of it. Okay, so my class co-hosts usually have a couple of functions, really again, to minimize the administrative work that I have to do in regards to my teaching. So the class co-host is usually responsible, of course, to admit the students who get disconnected while I was teaching. Okay, and then secondly, to actually figure out what to do with the recording. So as a class co-host, later they will have access to my class recording. So if they want to share it with their classmate, upload it in YouTube, okay, usually I apply this for my undergraduate class, and or if any of the class member ask for the recording, it will come from the class co-host instead of me. Okay, so really to eliminate, you know, the admin things that I have to do outside of the class time. And then secondly, I ask them, okay, to make sure that after every class to track to give me a list of name, okay, of the overall class participation. So for example, one student, okay, will give me all this name. So once I have this name, it was really easy for me to input it into the online participation scoreboard. Okay, and usually I don't wait until, you know, several days or even 1 week or 2 weeks, because of course I will tend to forget. Although it is supported by the students list, I really like to also be sure on the students' mark and just making sure that the students who really contribute earn the marks that they deserve. Okay, so usually I will try as much as possible to make it consistent for me to immediately input it, right after class. And usually when I have this list, I only spend about less than 10 minutes or sometimes even 5 minutes. I can get it quickly done, okay, after several practice. So I appoint a class co-host to assist me with this, and it has worked really well to reduce my administration time to spend on tracking the marks. And then as for the alternative application, okay, because maybe some of us out here would like to try it, and just to let you, just to share also, Keep the Score, it is still, you're still able to use it for free if you if you don't want a public access to the overall scoreboard like the one that I showed you, which I think would beat the purpose of today's, would beat the purpose of using it, because, well, at least the way I use it, because I really wanted the students to be able to view their score. Okay, so if you are only using it for yourself, okay, to track the students' mark on a weekly basis without sharing it with the students, okay, you can still keep the score without having to pay anything. Okay, but if you really want to structure it like the way I structure it, getting it to be visible to the students, to be able to track their marks and things like that, okay, I would recommend also an alternative application, Track the Score. Okay, Track the Score online. It works fairly similar, in exception that it is not as attractive and it is actually very basic and straightforward. So maybe for some of my my participants for today, okay, my lovely audience for today, if you probably just want to try it out first, okay, before committing to paying anything. I'm not promoting the apps by any means, okay. So here is an alternative application. If appearance is not important, is probably secondary or not even a concern, you can try Track Score online. It works fairly similar, except the interface are very simple. Okay, we will go through the demonstration after this. And then one thing is that again, the process, well, I admit the process can be tedious, okay, because at least for me, I'm committing it on a weekly basis, but at least it depends on the lecturer, whether you want to do it as a one-time thing, or maybe even during a particular activity, or maybe not something as constant as how I structure it for myself, okay. But one thing I also take into account, because I do use the online participation scoreboard as an indicator, not an absolute translation of their marks. I also in my class use peer evaluation, okay, asking the students to evaluate their peers, especially in group contribution, and also because I am an adult education scholar and I recognize and I acknowledge the struggle of an adult student, so I have to make sure that I provide them with some support in my own teaching and in my own class. And I do acknowledge students with difficulty to open their microphone because maybe their background is noisy and things like that. So I actually open up at the end of the semester for some optional submission for behind the screen efforts and contribution reports. So what it is that the students who perhaps feel like the scoreboard did not reflect their actual effort because maybe they are not able to be vocal enough, okay, they can actually write me a report and support with proof. Okay, so usually the proof is a print screen of their WhatsApp, okay, engaging in the class, engaging in their class discussion, you know, some screen, print screen of their outside of class time, outside of hours, Zoom discussion in their group assignment and things like that. And what happened, I still remember one situation. So one of the students in my graduate class, okay, she was more on the quiet side. Okay, so of course her marks are pretty low on the scoreboard, but at the end of the semester, because I conducted this, what I learned from the report is that the students are actually pregnant, okay, during that time, okay, heavily pregnant, and also managing 3 of her children under 12 for PDPR. And then because I use peer evaluation, okay, one of the students actually mentioned about this particular student name and how she was really impressed with her commitment because she really tried her best, okay, despite, you know, she's not being well and also having to manage a lot of things in regards to her children, and to the point where sometimes they have to meet up for a Zoom discussion late at night, okay, up to 12 o'clock. So again, I feel like these are the empowerment of adult students that I have to embrace in my own class because I'm an adult education scholar. Okay, but again, these are some of the things that I use to triangulate, okay, to make sure that keep the score is just one indicator, but I usually evaluate in a more comprehensive way to acknowledge, okay, to some students who might not be able to participate or at least have their contribution showed in the online participation scoreboard for various reasons, right? So this I use the triangulation methods also in my class for their marks at the end of the semester. Okay, so these are some counters I use. And we will go back to the scoreboard demonstration shortly, or should we take some question and answer first, Dr. Intan?
Yes, Dr. Ira. Thank you, Dr. Ira. Actually, there are some questions in the chat box, so maybe I'll read out so that you can just answer the questions. So the first one is from Dr. Muhammad Amiruddin. The question is, how much percentage did you set from whole mark of the course from this online participation?
Okay. Thank you for the questions. Actually, for my graduate class, okay, because it is supposedly to be structured on a discussion base, I provide 15% for contribution marks. Again, the scoreboard does not reflect the actual mark that the students will receive, but only an indicator, and I will still evaluate on my own later on. But the indicator really helps me to decide, okay, this probably would be a good range to provide the student with marks. So at least if there is any kind of questions, I can really show, the scoreboard as a proof. Okay, these are how much they are contributing, and how I actually base my evaluation on. Because as you know, these are very subjective, right? When you are trying to evaluate contribution, especially in a medium class. If you're talking about small class, it might be doable. But I couldn't speak to on an online class. But for my undergraduates, for their contribution is 10%. 10%. Yes.
Okay,
5 to 10%, depending on the subject for that week. For those with Amali class, I usually give 10%, but I do teach another class without Amali. Okay, that is only 5%. But really, the students don't look at it at the fact that it is only 5%, because there are of course other marks. But the fact that I was tracking their marks, they were able to see, every week they are gaining and accumulating points throughout the semester. Okay, so they are really very much eager. Well, at least most of them were very much eager to try and gain points from the classes. Yeah.
Okay. Okay, thanks, Dr. Ira. I hope that answers the question. Another question, Dr. Ira. Who key in the marks on the scoreboard? Well, I think that you have mentioned earlier that you had like this one student to take the role to take notes of which students contributing during the class, right? But who actually like key in the not just take note, but to key in the marks in the scoreboard?
All right. So I do the key in myself, Dr. Afida. I do see the question in the chat. So actually, for the online participation scoreboard, you are given two link in order to manage the scoreboard. Okay, so let me share with you. So this one is the public view. Okay, of so everybody, so this is the link that I will actually share in my class. Okay, but for adding the score, I will actually, this is my current class right now. But just to share with you, I will actually be adding the scores myself. Okay, because the co-host was appointed among the students in the class. Okay, so I don't feel comfortable giving the the administration access to the students, different students on a weekly basis. Okay, because I will never know if they tamper with their own marks, right? So I would do it myself. Okay, so how it works is that, so as of course, sorry, let me just open it in another tab so that we can see the difference. Okay, right. So this one, it is only viewable. All right, there's really nothing to click other than the students are able to look at their score and also the notes that associated with their contribution. Okay, all right. So nothing to do except for viewing. But for the administration part is that I will I will be able to add the score every week. So here is the button, add score. Okay, so these are the lists of the name of the students. Okay, all are already input and set up during the early part of the semester. Okay, and then I usually want to let the students know that the points that they earn for that particular week is for what. So if it's just the class contribution as a whole, I don't really I don't really go into that detail. Okay, so for example, commenting on theory A, commenting on theory B, all right, I don't. Yeah, I do it more generally. So for example, week 14 online class contribution, week every week. Okay, so if it's slightly different things that are being done or some bonus point or something like that, I will also make sure that it is being spelled out in the comment over here. So all you need to do is just click the points, okay? And you can actually also, if you really want to structure this as a competition, this is of course a very flexible apps, and this is actually how I use it in my class. But again, you are welcome to explore and maybe tailor it to your class. So if you, let's say for example, you are structuring a competition per se, okay, or maybe a live competition, you can get, you know, your students to control this, and for every wrong question, they will probably, what it is that they can start with 10 marks for everyone. For every wrong question, they can be deducted marks, okay, and then for every right question, they can be added marks, okay. But at least for my teaching practices for the time being, I do not practice any mark deduction yet in my class. All right, do not plan to do that, okay, because I think while they are adjusting and learning to embrace the new the online learning, deducting marks will probably become a demotivator for them. Okay, so I avoid that. I just want to make sure that when I speak to them about engaging in class, they are actually in a very safe environment in my class. So I always told them, there is really no right and wrong in your answers, or at least no right and wrong in whatever that you are sharing. Okay, so because I just wanted them to engage and to share their opinion, especially from my graduate students. Okay, for my graduate students, I really want to have to develop, okay, that scholarly intellectual capacity of being able to give responses, asking critical questions and things like that. But at the same time, I emphasizes on the students, okay, if you got the answer, or if you answer something, you are not sure if it's right and wrong, and it's totally okay in my class. I will always structure it as such so that I do not use the negative points for my students. Okay, so these are the new interface. You can actually edit it in a multiple way, right? Okay, so you can actually choose all the things that you want here. So this is the part where I said, you know, given that it is now a paid version, you can actually set it up in a different way. So there, as a matter of fact, ever since it was upgraded into a paid applications, okay, I have not since actually explore all the different options. Okay, I'm still just sticking to the way how I used to do it. And you can even upload logo if you're creating a competition. For my graduate class, actually I structure it, you know, so more, well, somewhat more serious looking, but this one is for my undergraduate class. Again, undergraduate class, the goal is slightly different, okay, as compared to my undergraduate class, right? So again, this is how I track their contribution. So for editing, you can edit, you know, you can edit the format of the board according to how you want it to do, and then you can add player. I don't know if you face this, but for me, at least for my graduate class, okay, the first 4 to 5 weeks of classes, really I have to deal with students registering and dropping the class, okay, up till week 5. Okay, all right, so of course this needs to be updated from time to time, so you can do that while already having the scoreboard out there. Okay, it doesn't mean that you have to redo all over again, so you can just add the player's name. Okay. Okay, any more questions, Dr. Intan, or anything else to show from the scoreboard?
Well, yeah, because like I think you have just like give a bit of like the teaser of the demonstration that you'll show later, right, Dr. Ira? And then before we go into more details into the demonstration, there's actually another question about the triangulation method that you explained in the last slides that you showed earlier.
Okay, sure. So all right, thank you. I saw the questions. Okay, so for the triangulation method, this is a little bit probably I did not prepare this much for today, because I was really focusing on the online participation scoreboard as there's one of the strategy for class engagement. But one of the way I would triangulate this is using peer evaluation. Okay, meaning to say, so this is not using the online participation scoreboard, but I actually will provide the students with And to be honest, I couldn't find, for this peer evaluation, I couldn't find an apps that could digitize this process. So I have to still use Word, Microsoft Words. And as a matter of fact, I'm in the process of doing a research on peer evaluation, okay, to make this more digitized in the future. So probably in 2-3 years time, I probably will be able to share more on peer evaluation. But for the time being, for the peer evaluation, I get each of the student, the class so for this for my for both actually. So for group projects, okay, I will get the students to evaluate or assess their group members' contribution to the marks. Okay, all right. So for example, so how I triangulate is that sorry, let me show you. Okay. Okay, so like for example, right, I have shown you how this board helps me identify students who are quote unquote maybe having problems. Okay, I don't want to say that they are problematic, but they're probably having problems. Okay, so these students in particular, all right. So when I use the online, one of the way I triangulate, I was making sure that, you know, is it the students was not able to participate maybe because of internet connection or computer device limitation or whatever. But when I do the evaluation at the end of the semester, I collected peer evaluation among the students who is the group member of the students. And I do find out that the students just don't want to contribute and don't want to respond. Okay, so I sort of know that the students are really just swinging by, taking the classes, but really not interested in doing anything in the class. Okay, so that's one of the method that I triangulate. So for example, like these students over here is the one that I've shared with you. What I realized is that, okay, her marks is not typically low, not so low, but you know, you can see that, you know, as compared to the rest of the class members, she's more on the at the end of this the tangent, okay, at the end of the side. But what I discovered from the peer evaluation is her own situations, okay, and the fact that her class member speaks, her group member speaks highly of her commitment in the classes despite her situation. So I know that the students here was not able to engage probably because of her home situation. Okay, but at least I did not penalize her for being in such situation, and I'm making sure I adjust the marks accordingly to reflect her effort outside of what I can track on the online participation scoreboard. I hope that answers the questions.
Okay, thank you, Dr. Ira. And there's no question from the YouTube as well, actually. And yeah, because we are going live on YouTube as well. So those who are on YouTube, watching through YouTube, you actually can also ask questions to the speaker through the chat box on the side of the screen. Okay. So yeah, since we don't have any more questions, so perhaps we can just go ahead with the demonstration.
Okay, all right, thank you, Dr. Intan. Okay, so I want to show you guys, to be honest, this is fairly intuitive. I think if you spend about 10 minutes of time exploring, I think you should be able to get the hang of it because it is a pretty simple application. Okay, but since we do have time to engage, okay, might as well, I'll just show you guys how to actually do, to set up the online participation scoreboards. Okay, right, so, okay, anyway, I just caught one of the chat comment just now, the fact that, sorry, I wish I forgot to respond. So before that, sorry, let me take a look back, yeah. Right, Dr. Afida, so you mentioned like you prefer to have the students to do this themselves. I wasn't, you can actually get the students to do it by giving them the administration link. Or if let's say you have a SGRA, GRA, who you would like to empower to do this, you should be able to do this just by giving them the administration link. For me, I like to do it myself, okay, just for a reason because I don't have any GRA, and the class co-host was also the students from the class, and I don't feel comfortable giving the access to the students in case they change their marks. Okay, so as long you can get anybody to upgrade, update the score, and even make changes to anything at all on the scoreboard as long as you give them the administration links. Okay, right. Okay, so let us go to the demonstration real quick. Okay, sorry, why am I sorry. Sorry. Okay, setting up. So this is the alternative to track, keep the score. Okay, so again, well, at least for the time being, this is free and requires no user account. You don't really have to sign up, and it can track up to 150 players if you really want to go to that extent. Okay, but because it is free, it is actually very basic, right, for the things that you are able to do. So for example, you can set it up. So this is the part where, again, it is a bit leceh, all right? It can be a bit troublesome, especially if you are dealing with a large number of classes. Okay, but sorry. So one thing I realized that is different on the track the score is that you have to key in the name one by one, as opposed to keep the score. You can actually paste, you can actually cut and paste all the name from the SMP or iGEMS, and then you just put it under one line. I will demonstrate it later, and then have all the names input in the scoreboard. But for keep track the score, you have to input the name one by one. Okay, right. So I think we can stop at that, and we go. And this is where you are given the two types of link, all right? So the public link and admin link. And again, just to alert everybody, if you're using TrackScore Online, because you are not signing up for any account, you have to keep this link somewhere in your browser, or bookmark it somewhere. Like for example, for myself, I even keep, right, for easy access, because I use it on a weekly basis. You also have to do this and bookmark that, and then you might want to differentiate between public link and admin link. Okay, so if you get the score now, so if you see, it is very basic. Okay, if you just want to try it out without any commitment, okay, you can. Okay, so this is supposed how it is look like. Okay, you can't really share, you can't really change a lot of it, but if you go to the admin link, okay, all right, so this is where you can choose to add the score. And if you remember from the earlier sneak peek of the keep the score, this is track the score, the free version. You can actually subtract and set. So you can do some things. It's just that the interior is slightly different. Okay, so it is a bit leceh, because you have to input and then you have to click OK. All right. Okay. So for me,
sorry, Dr. So it means that if we have like 40 students here, then we have to like
right,
in the name one by one and click OK one by one.
For the free version. Okay, all right. So it might be so everybody knows the limitations. Okay, so yeah, it can requires a lot of administration work. Probably it work if you have SGRA or GRA who can help you with teaching. All right, if you have one, so it would work. Okay, asking them to update this. Okay, so these are the free version, which, to be honest, when I figure out that the keep the score is no longer free, because it was free last year, but it was not free starting this year. So I explore on another free applications, and I came across with this. But when I try it out, I realized that, you know, these are not as seamless as keep the score. Therefore, I was willing to pay. It was only $399 per one-time payment, and you are able to keep the score. So if you translate it, that is about 13 ringgit. Okay, because I use it all the time and I collected the data and I want to write a paper on it, I feel like it is worth an investment. Okay, so I just want to let everybody know on these options and the limitations. Okay, so these are the demonstration for the track the score online. So let us work on keep the score, which is have more options. Okay, so these are mine. Okay, it says here upgraded, but actually this was from last year when I had it free. It's just that when I start a new semester, I usually will change the student's name so that I can continue to recycle it for all my classes as long as I want to use it. Okay, so these are, I teach undergrad class and postgraduate class, 2 classes every semester. So these are reflective of the classes that I handle in 1 year. Okay, right. So if you want to explore this later, right? So you can see that the keep the score have more options. And to be honest, as I mentioned, I had not really explore a lot of these other options, because when I first started on the free version, they only have one version, and then they added more since, and I haven't actually got the time to explore it. Okay, so there might be some options that works more for what you have in mind for your classes. Okay, so you can even create a live sports scoreboard. So I don't know if you teach some sort of like sports in the class, you know, or some kind of competition. You can really use this multiple scoreboard, and you can even use it, I think, in face-to-face classes, because you can just hook it up online and then show it on the screen while the students are doing something, I think. Okay, but of course I have not ventured into such application, such usage before. So mine was really mostly for my class teaching. So for me is the leaderboard. Okay, so it's for my class. All right, and then usually I will know the number of my class by registration. Okay, appearance. Okay, it really depends what do you want, and usually this one I will leave it as it is. These are really new things. Okay, so like right just now, you have to add for the free version, which is a different one, track score. You have to add the number, the name one by one. But for this one, you can actually, as long as you write it in one line, you don't have to input it one by one. Okay, so for me, what I do is that I opened up the list of SMP. I will copy the name and then immediately cut and paste the entire list name into this scoreboard. Okay, so it is fairly easy to use compared to keep the board, the other one. Okay, so this will be how it looks like, right? And then the rest, you have seen how it is unfolded into a full-blown participation scoreboard. So as you can see, can also be structured differently. So this one is probably less colorful, okay, more formal. And this one you can change the theme and you can structure it. You know, you can just play around with the setup. Okay, so it depends on what you're looking for or how you want to do it. Okay, so as you can see, my student's name over here, I just want to make it more fun. So I actually asked the students to check in online in their group, right? In our WhatsApp group. So before I start the first day of class, okay, my class is at 2 o'clock in the afternoon on the first week. I asked the student to check in with their nickname and also their emoji. All right, and by end of the class and by end of the activity in Telegram or in WhatsApp, I actually have a long list of the entire name of the students, and all I need to do is just cut and paste and put it here. And then that's why you can see all the emoji here. It comes directly from the student. So I don't have to write it one by one, okay, or at least extract it one by one, because for the undergraduate student, I really want them I want to put in their nicknames. You know, I want to make it like more of a fun board, not too serious. As compared to the graduate students, usually I will use their full names and things like that. So it depends on the climate that you want to set. Okay, so for the students, I immediately just cut and paste and clicked it over here. So that's why you see all the emoji. So again, the emoji does not come from me. I don't have the patience to key in one by one for each of the students. So from here also is how I identify and connect to the student looking at their names. Because again, it's really hard. You're trying to visualize, you know, the student's face to the student's name and their names and, you know, their online presence and things like that. So even by the emoji, I can sort of, when I talk to them online, right, engaging, okay, so you are the one with the snake, the dragon emoji. Why so? Brandon. Okay, this student's name is Brandon. Okay, and then it become a conversation starter and things like that. So those are some of the small things that I do in my class, especially for undergraduate students, to just pick up on having them to not be afraid to talk in classes. So those are my goal for undergraduate. My goal for graduate students are slightly different, which focusing more on having them to develop that intellectual capacity to be able to discuss on a more serious topic or on the class content. Okay, right. So I think the demonstration is fairly simple because there isn't much to learn so much actually, but the apps, as I mentioned, it is fairly straightforward. You can play around with all the different setup, okay, all the different view. But other than that, I don't think this is very complicated or apps to try and apply. The most important part is understanding how to apply it in the class. All right, and also maybe thinking ahead on the administration works that you have to do or you have to commit, and trying to minimize that. Because for me, I know, I understand the caveat. Okay, I understand the caveat, and that's why I'm acknowledging this in the sharing session. But I'm really satisfied at the end of the semester to seeing how the students are progressing. And towards the later part of the semester, okay, I realized I spend less energy talking in the class and having to elicit students' respond all the time. At least it feels less draining, because sometimes you get really frustrated trying to get the students to respond, and they are not talking, you're asking questions, and then you end up answering back the questions. And for me, my class is usually for 3 hours, and talking for the full 3 hours can be very exhausting. So for me to compensate that, having to build the climate of this engagement, by end of the semester, usually when I go to the class are more lively. I can do less talking, and even sometimes get the students to lead the discussion and participation, because I can really see the change in their behavior. Okay, in regards to how they are more confident, willing to help the classmate, leading the classes, okay, willing to do all sort of presentation, just because they are accumulating all this point. Okay, but in the end, of course, there are still going to be assignments and things like that, but I just tie it to only 10% to 15%. But the students don't look at it that way. They only look at the score as in total. This is ongoing right now. They only look at it, the score in total, okay, of the marks that they accumulated. They don't even think about this is only 10% of my class, because for most of the students, even 1 or 2 marks count. Okay. And one more thing I also like to share, there are times, okay, especially when I first start doing this, I will overlook on the student's name in terms of updating the points, and also sometimes, overlook, or even sometimes during the discussion, I could not identify the student's name. Okay, so what I always inform the students in my lengthy write-up is that I will tell the students, if your points is missing for that particular week, okay, you have to let me know. I mean, I will tell the students, please don't be afraid to ask if you think you are missing a point. So I, in advance, will let them know that I'm only human trying to manage all this, but I want to be fair to all the students. So if they don't see their deserved point reflected, if they feel like they contributed, I will ask the student to PM me and tell me what is their contribution. But of course, I will ask them to PM within the first, as soon as the board marks are posted, so that I can recall and remember. And some even will actually share their print screen and even take note and things like that. So it's easy for me to just update the marks on a weekly basis. Like for example, and I provide various unannounced bonus point throughout the class, okay, depending on the class dynamic. Okay, so for example, for my undergraduate students, they have a corporate presentation. Okay, so I told them, the best group, okay, will receive bonus points. So again, it's a classic behavior risk. Or maybe last time you used to giving award to student like things, right? I don't know, maybe grab money or hadiah, things like that. So it works just as well with points, and you don't have to burn your pocket, okay, giving your own money, coming out with your own money, because I know a lot of teachers also like to do that, which is okay, but the points work just as well, at least for most of my students. Okay, so they have their corporate presentation, and I said the best dress presentation and the best presentation will earn a bonus point that week, and then I will reflect that in my point. Okay, so the students are really, some of them are really keeping up with the scoreboard, and then will be asking me if they don't see their marks reflected, which I have already informed, and I've trained myself not to be offended by that. For me, it is part of my commitment to them. They participate, and I promise them a point. If I overlook or it is an oversight from me, I will own it and update the marks accordingly. So I will tell the student in advance, if you don't see your points, you let me know. Okay, you let me know and talk. So I, in a way, especially for undergraduate students, it is part of developing their skills, because I believe in them to develop their courage and not to be too intimidated to talk to lecturers, especially to communicate their concern and things like that. So a lot of students, at first they just PM me for things about the scoreboard, but eventually they are able to share, their internet connection problems, all these different problems that I couldn't see just by being on the screen. So again, the goal is about class engagement. So I think at the end of the class, usually I was able to acquire most of them, or at least with most of the students. And it is pretty much remembered by the students as well. And the fact that I used this online participation scoreboard in my class. Yeah. Okay. Yes, Prof. The public link is the one that I share with my students. So let me share again my screen for the sample. So when I make an announcement, and this is very elaborate, this is again just me wanting to be sure that the student get all the information and be very clear with how I award points. So this is where I will share with the students, the link, the public link, so that every week when I update, they will be able to see their points. I even pin this on the top of the Telegram and even put it in a Putra Blast. And again, I just make it like a big deal to the class, and knowing that their present in my class are not, are not overlooked. They're present in my class are being noticed and also being observed. So yes, these are the public link, but make sure that the admin link is only safe to whoever that you want to have access to edit the scoreboard.
And that's supposed to be the answer to to Prof. Ramiza's question in the chat box, right, Dr. Aira?
Yes. I'm responding to Prof. Ramiza, and also Dr. Amiruddin asked if there is a possibility that the students could cheat in peer evaluation. In terms of doing their friends a favor, is that what you mean, Dr. Amiruddin? Because for their peer evaluation, I did not show you how I do it in my class. It is not using the online participation scoreboard, but I get the student to evaluate their friends using a form that I developed on my own. And the reason, and it is just a simple Microsoft Word form. And the reason I did not digitize it because I couldn't find any free application. And therefore I'm conducting a study on that, hoping one day I could come up with my own application that could support that. But again, for me, peer evaluation is providing me with another perspective to triangulate. So I usually, because again, this is a medium-sized class, I try as much as possible to keep up with all the 40 or the 30 students that I manage. So the peer evaluation is just one way for me to take a look and evaluate. All right. So I don't typically take the peer evaluation just as a face value as it is, but I look at it from the peer evaluation, the score, okay, on things that they submitted, the overall present. But at least I have evidences in writing, all right, something to base my evaluation on, okay, rather than just doing it on top of my head or trying to recall about it at the end of the semester.
Okay, thank you, Dr. Aira. So yeah, Dr. Meridian said that he was thinking that maybe they can cooperate in giving good feedback to each other, which I think, yes, that is possible. That can happen among themselves, right?
Yeah.
So that's it, the question from the chat box. But I'm wondering if there's like anyone else who would like to actually ask the question directly to Dr. Aira. You can actually like unmute yourself and ask the questions. Anyone?
But anyway, Dr. Amiruddin, to respond on thinking maybe it can cooperate in giving good feedback to each other, I think this would be possible, but I'm not sure if the scoreboard can support such, because I think how the scoreboard works is just points. I think there isn't much of a way. So hopefully, one day I might came across with, a peer evaluation app that can be used and will be shared, or I will, depending on the outcome of my research, can come up with something. Because yes, I do believe in the importance of peer evaluation, but that is probably a topic that I hopefully will be comfortable sharing in the near future, because I'm still actually conducting a research and gathering feedbacks on doing that in my class. Yeah. Okay.
Okay, thank you, Dr. Aira. Any question from the floor? Well, because if you don't have, and yes, Dr. Nuruddin, I can.
Good morning, Dr. Ira and Dr. Sharifah. Sorry, actually, I have got one more question regarding do you provide rubric, I mean, in terms of giving marks to the student? Because that make it easier, right? To actually, in the end of the course, you might want to see whether, okay, this type of what we call the feedback given by a student, is it possible to get within which range of the mark that you should give to them? Is that about that?
Yeah, so Dr. Amiruddin is asking about the marks that is tied to their grade, right? Not the online participation scoreboard, correct?
Yes.
Okay, all right. Yes, I do. Yeah. So I do write. Early in the semester, I will usually give all my student a course packet, and I will actually elaborate on how I track or how I evaluate their contribution. So it would be considered a rubric, but it's not a very structured rubric. It's more of an open-ended rubric. So let me try to find it out. I did not prepare for that. Just give me a second. Yeah, let me show it to you. So it comes in a form of a write-up, explaining to the student the things that I typically look for. And so far the students have no questions, or probably I don't know if they don't read it because it's too lengthy. Okay, because this is just my habit of writing, things in detail, as I am a qualitative researcher. Dr. Intan knows this, how lengthy I tend to write things in my write up and things like that. Just trying to pull it up real. Okay. So here, all right. Let me share screen, able to pull it up. So it's not a rubric, a very structured rubric, okay? But this is part of the course package, okay? So for example, so this one, it's 15%. Sometimes I give marks for attendance, okay, but I break it down. But marks for participation will be awarded when students demonstrate active online participation and significant contribution. So by outlining all this, all right. So again, it's not very structured in a way that for everything it is certain marks, but the scoreboard is in a way give them some kind of structure on how they are being evaluated. But here I mentioned that an online participation scoreboard will be used as one of the indicators. Again, because I triangulate using peer assessment and also the optional submission for asking the student to submit any proof of their out of works effort, usually with proof. But for that one, I don't actually announce it in advance. The optional submission, okay, asking the students to submit their proof of effort outside of classes. I don't announce it in advance. I announce it on the last week of classes because I figure out if the students have it and done it, they will have it. Because if you announce it during early the semester, they will probably fabricate that, or just aiming for that, okay, aiming to develop that proof per se. So I will announce that at the end of the semester, and again I use that to help me decide on their final marks of this 15%. Okay, right. So I also, because last time, again, I started with UPM in 2018, sorry, but started teaching in 2019. Again, how I was taught in graduate school is that attendance and contribution is counted as part of your grades. Okay, so that's how I was being taught. Okay, so what I realized is that, of course, during the first few semester, I was really uncomfortable, but I forced myself because it's part of the mark. But at the end of the whole graduate program, I realized how much I have grown as a result of that kind of training. So I wanted to impart the same to my students. But what I also realized as an instructor, okay, during my first few semester of teaching, when I'm trying to decide these marks, I'm always in dilemma, like attendance, I cannot be basing it fully on attendance because I think it should be more than that. For example, when I was even doing this for my physical classes, but how else can I make sure that the marks are fairly evaluated for all the students? Because as you know, if 14 weeks at end of semester, you can only recall the students who are really, really very active. But how about the rest who may be sort of in the middle of the bell curve, right? So what if they are probably not so extrovert, probably somewhere in the middle. Okay, so for those in the middle who always is the one I have problem giving marks. So I wanted to make sure that I have a very active, a significant amount of documentation to refer to. Even if now I am being asked about how do I decide the students get 10 and this one student gets 6, for example, I can confidently show the online participation scoreboard and say, this is part of how I evaluate. And then I have other things that I also share or I also collect, okay, as part of my evaluation for this component. Okay, so now I am more ready for justifying how the students are awarded marks, okay, for their grade, okay, in regards to their contribution. Because last time it was always very muddy, very fuzzy, and I know that some of the students end up probably not being noticed, okay, not getting the marks that they probably deserve, and things that they do outside of the class time. All right, they are contributing. For example, maybe they are the hardworking one in the group assignments and things like that, but I can't see it, okay, because they are just not so vocal in the class. Because the reason why I'm quite particular with this is because I was actually one of the introvert students as well when I first started as a graduate student, because I studied in the US. So American tends to be very jovial and extrovert, and I'm from the Asia, and we know how is our culture in general. So I am the one who is always very quiet in the class. Okay, but what I realized is that I put in a lot of effort actually to prepare for my classes, okay, to have that thought process form in my mind, but was never able to actually share it in my class because I was hesitant and I could not gain that confidence. But what I realized after many semesters is that I gained that confidence but through the training. So I wanted to impart the same process, especially to my students as well. Okay, right.
Dr. Aira, there's another question from Dr. Ramiza. Is the percentage 15% the same for both UG and PG?
Okay, thank you, Prof. Actually for this, I depends on a lot of things, but no, I did not structure it the same for PG or postgraduate because I felt like class the class, the way I handled the class or the way I teach the class, it has to be discussion lead classes rather than lecture based. So I put in 15% on the higher marks for contributions. But for undergraduate class, usually I limit it to 5 to 10% because 10% is for classes that have amali, and 5% is really just to support some other components for classes that is just 3 plus 0 only. So it depends on the nature of the class and also the LO. Yeah. So far, I don't teach any class with CS LO, communication skills. Perhaps this can be considered if your LO have any CS. If your course have any CS as their LO, this might be perked up to be a little bit more. And then you can structure, the scoreboard, okay, to be a way for you to be able to help track and evaluate their quote unquote communication skills observed throughout the semester per se. Yeah.
Okay. So that's the question from the chat box. Anyone else want to ask a question to Dr. Aira? Anyone else?
Assalamualaikum.
Yes.
Assalam.
Hi, Dr. Aira. Thank you for the sharing. I find it very interesting. I just wonder about the mark. Did you have a fixed mark allocated for the online participation? I know you have 15%, but what about the mark as a whole number?
The mark from the online, the online participation scoreboards ke, Dr. Nina?
Yeah, yes, true, for the scoreboard.
So no, for the online participation scoreboard, how I tracked it is just on a weekly basis. And then at the end of the semester, it's just an accumulation of what has been done using the scoreboard. But for example, like the students, right? So the class, so actually I do got the students to ask. So for example, if they are already earning 19, okay, so does it mean that they will earn 15 out of 15 because the allocation mark for their grade is only 15? What about the students who earn 14? or 13? Does it mean that they only earn 13 over 15 and things like that? I decided not to base it on that way. But of course, students who are very outstanding, typically they will earn full mark, not just because of the indications, the participation scoreboard, but it's just because overall they are really very outstanding. Usually they are here for a reason. Okay, right. So for this one, what I will do is that I'll take a look at it, and sometimes I even will structure it, like how many students, I will calculate the average, I will calculate the average, and then I will look at the cutoff point of the average. So those above average and those below average. And then I will look at the students individually one by one. All right, okay, so those who are above average, okay, the triangulation part, looking at their other contribution, their peer feedback and everything, their attendance, okay, and then I will decide on their final marks above 15. But for the online participation scoreboard, it's basically not capped to any marks at all, because how it is structured is that if you earn the highest score, it will automatically reflected here through the trophy icon. But I do max the point that the students can earn on a weekly basis. Again, because I don't want it to make it too competitive. So for example, one student dominate the entire class discussion and then end up getting 10 points for that week. Okay, so I decide to limit only one student per week only will be able to gain 2 points, unless for bonus contribution, which will be announced randomly by me, depending on what we are doing for our classes. Yeah. Okay, I hope that answered your questions, Doctor.
Oh, yes, very much. Thank you.
Thank you, Dr. Nina, for the question, and thank you, Dr. Ira. Dr. Ira, actually, I myself have a question to ask to you, if you don't mind, actually. Okay, so because you are sharing about the apps, this scoreboard apps to be used in the case for to encourage students' participation, especially in the classes where the students has become maybe too tired with the online classes and all that. Okay, but how do you think this experience of using the tools, the scoreboard apps, could be different for the class which are readily active?
How different can it be for class that is already active?
Yes.
Okay. All right. I think the principle is going to apply the same. Okay, if they are already active, meaning they are probably going to take it one step a notch or even more to really, for example, rebut the marks for every week. Okay, I think. Okay, but so far I've not think through, because I don't know, maybe some of you are lucky to have students who are already very active, but usually, at least based on my experience using this application for 3 semesters, this is my 4th semester, it does require a little bit of warm up weeks, okay, before they really pick up their pace and before they are really comfortable, okay, with the whole idea of class engagement and the fact that they know that their contribution are really tracked. Okay, so I think one of the things that if you really want to commit to this, you really have to make the acts reflected. Okay, because if you say that you are doing this and tracking their marks, but the marks are not reflected or up to date on a weekly, actually I promise them weekly or bi-weekly. All right, so I just want to be on the safe side, but usually I try to keep it up within less than three days, because at that time I still remember who students, I still remember the conversation or the discussion that happens in the class. But I told the student weekly or bi-weekly basis, okay, just to be on the safe side. So of course I keep up with my commitment and promises. So far the students are able to see the progression of their marks. Okay, one thing I realized I also have one more slides to share. This is probably a little bit of the topic, so but I do receive these questions during my last presentation on this online participation scoreboard. So again, it's not what I do in my class in order to structure it. Okay, but this presentation is focused on the online participation scoreboard, but you can't just be teaching and expecting the students to engage without planning any other class engagement, so that it opens up the opportunity for the students to engage or ask questions or participate. So for example, the way I structured my class is that almost every class that I have, for example, I structure weekly sharing session every week. So that students who are going to be presenting, I call it tri-pairing because the class number is quite large and I only needed 13 13, I only have 13 weeks. So I divide the group into 3 students so that every week they will actually be sharing something. Okay, so I call it tri-pairing instead of pairing because pairing are 2 students. So weekly sharing session. So the students are given a theme every week, and every week they will come in and prepare and present something, and then those will be awarded a point. Okay, so again, I provide all kind of various opportunity in my class for the students to be able to contribute and active. Okay, so rather than just providing my lecture and then expecting the student to ask questions, so I will present in my slide a kind of key questions, for example, for my graduate class. Okay, so I will write what is, so for example, some of my students I will give readings. I will say, okay, can you guys, 2 to 3 students give response to the readings? These are usually the normal things that you will do in class, but the difference is that the students know that they are being awarded points, provided they are responding to your questions. But part of it also, I prepare small group discussion, okay, within my class, but with debriefing session at the end. What it means is that, okay, after, giving the lecture for half an hour, okay, all students are divided into small group discussions. Okay, all right. I think most of us done this. Okay, but what it is that you will ask, each of the group, right, to present the outcome of their small group discussion. So I call it a debriefing session. Okay, so usually the students will pass around. Okay, you present. Okay, they don't want to present. They only want to participate in the discussion, but they don't want, when we go back to the large class, they don't want to be the one who presented the discussion. Okay, but what happened when I start using this class participation scoreboard, the student even take turn to present. Okay, like for example, the small group discussion was divided into 5 students per group. When they come back, okay, students who have not earned points, for example, 5 students, 3 have not earned points. These 3 students, okay, will actually be taking turns to present on whatever their group discussion is because they want to earn the point for that week. And I also done a flip lecture before, where even at the start of the classes, I asked the students to discuss first, okay, before I presented my lecture. So discuss and then stand by with a single page PowerPoint, for example, and then I will give my lecture and I said, okay, what else that you discussed in your group that was not presented by my lecture? So you have to present. So again, presenting them with the opportunity to speak up and engage. So they will contribute and you will have the opportunity to provide them with points. And I also use a lot of apps as well. And this is thanks to my engagement with CADe. I learned a lot actually from CADe Talks. Yeah? So Flippity and Peer Deck, this is not covered as part of this class, but you can explore it if they want. The example over here is from Flippity and Peer Deck. I actually learned it from Dr. Chong from Faculty Pertanian actually. So I adopted it and engaged it and applied in my class. Okay, so for example, these are one of my, let me start from the start. So 5 groups, okay. These are my graduate class. So what it is that I use this to ask to develop the category that the students needs to discuss based on the topic, okay. And then the students are discussing, okay. So again, most of them are very engaged and you can see they are opening up their camera, right? Really, really very engaged, okay. All right, and then the debriefing session is then when they are going to let me know, the class know actually the outcome of the discussion, comparing it to the other groups and things like that. And by end of the semester, I don't really have to do a lot of name calling. Okay, I don't have to force anybody now. They were the one who are going to volunteer and said, okay, Yong and also Anna is going to present for today. Again, they will depend it based on who have not earned point for that particular week. Okay. Right, so these are some ideas for class engagement that you can also incorporate to provide the students with the opportunity, all right, to contribute, and then so that you can award them with the point other than the usual things that you do. So I use this in conjunction. So I would credit, all the things that I integrate in my class from my colleague to these 2 colleagues, okay, that I've learned by attending their sessions. Okay, all right. All right.
Okay, thank you, Dr. Ira. There's no more question actually. I'm trying to figure out if there's a question in the YouTube as well. Okay, no question. So maybe we can pick a last question if there's any from the floor. Anyone?
Thank you, Prof. Thank you, Prof. Ramiza, for coming. Okay, it means a lot to me to see you today.
Okay, so if there's no more question, maybe I can like just summarize the session a bit. Again, Dr. Ira. So what we have discussed today is actually about like some tips and tricks like to get our students to engage, especially during the online learning that has been taken place like since last year. Okay, which can be like tiring for both actually, like for the students and also like for us the lecturers. Okay, so what Dr. Ira has shared today is not only about the use of the Scoreboard apps as a tool to record the marks of the participation, and which the students would be able like to view on their own, but also like some kinds of activities that can be used in conjunction with the apps to nudge the students. Okay, to nudge the students to get involved and to contribute, to participate in the classes. Okay, so I think that is really a wonderful sharing from Dr. Ira. So we hope in the future we can learn a lot more actually. I believe like probably like Flippity, I'm not sure, like it was from Dr. Chong. Was it from Dr. Chong?
I learned it from Dr. Chong. Yeah.
And it was from the kids webinar as well.
Right.
So
Yeah.
probably you can actually, like, if you are interested to learn about that, probably you can find the video from the kids YouTube channel, so that we can all like learn about the apps and also the other apps that Dr. Ira has mentioned, for example, Peer Deck as well. So with that, I would like to thank Dr. Ira once again for the wonderful time, for the wonderful sharing session. And also thank you as well to all of the audience who participates in this session. And yeah, until we meet again in the next session, in the kids webinar session. Thank you all. Assalamualaikum.
Thank you, Dr. Intan, for moderating me. Thank you, everybody, for coming and listening. All right. Well, all the materials I think will be up in YouTube.
Sarah, Intan.
Thank you, Ati. Boleh listen tu?
Boleh, Doktor. Apa lagi nanti?
Okay. Terima kasih.
Semua.
Jumpa lagi.
Thanks, Dr. Ira. Good sharing.
Doktor for kami.
Ya, nanti tutor saya dekat department.
InsyaAllah. Alright.
Okay, I plan to use that.
Okay, Doktor. Sure. InsyaAllah. Right.
Thank you. Thanks, Dr. Intan. Bye.
Nanti saya leave dulu ya. Okay.
Boleh, Doktor. Terima kasih, Doktor. Terima kasih, Intan.
Terima kasih, Intan. Bye.